Hey, people. What's up? Welcome. We see you coming in. Continue to come in. I think I have a little bit of feedback. Let me make sure we fix this for you. Is that better? There we go. Welcome, everyone. Keep coming in. Do me a favor, share this out on your network right now. Host a watch party or go on over to YouTube and subscribe to CTN Media where we're changing the narrative, but we're doing it with you. Welcome to 7 Generations Black, a podcast powered to equip and inform, clear your lens, and present you with a new perspective. With my guy, Theo E.J. Wilson, H. Soul, Lethal, and Jice Johnson. What up? I'm your host, Shay J, and we are 7 Generations Black. Now, if you don't know, we're in season 3, y'all. This is season 3, episode 1. So thank you for rocking with us. Thank you for the engagement, the love. We appreciate you. And so we're here yet another season to have this so important conversation. But you know, before we get into any conversation, I have to hit you with the red pill alert. This is your last chance. After this, there's no turning back. This is your opportunity to stop listening and tune out now. If you do, well, the story ends. And you wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. However, if you take this 7 Generations red pill, you stay here with us in a liberatory discussion, and we show you just how deep the rabbit hole goes. The choice, as always, is yours. But welcome to 7 Generations Black. The guy from Shop Talk Live, Mr. Theo E.J. Wilson. The Mr. Honorable Protector Initiative Lethal. I see you with your t-shirt. What does that one say?
Oh, that's George Floyd.
Oh, you have a collection. Let me step my game up. The Righteous Rage Institute, H. Soul. And of course, holding it down for the ladies, the Black Business Initiative, Jice Johnson. Yeah, we're like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes away from the election 2020.
5 minutes.
It's real. It's like you're gonna blink and the election is gonna be here. So if you're not registered, you still have time, but do me a favor, go get registered. We want to make sure everyone is registered to vote. So please, your voice does matter. Go get registered, but we're a couple days away. And so, you know, we have to talk about it, but we're going to talk about it from a 7 generational lens. So if you're just now tuning in, share this out on your network because this conversation is going to get real. It's going to get good and it's going to get deep. I hope my echo is fixed. Is my echo fixed, guys?
I don't hear an echo.
Okay, good. All right. Today's topic, season 3, episode 1. You're watching 7 Generations Black. We're going to tune into the monolithic Black votes. We read the red pill alert, the monolithic Black vote. It's time to talk about it. We know we have a ticket coming up in a couple of days, Democrat, Republican ticket, the Biden-Harris ticket against the Trump and Pence. And so as we're starting to really talk about voting and what this looks like for our community, you know, we've had a lot of discussion around this, and we've even challenged you to say, why are you voting? How are you voting? What does this look like? We've talked about this from so many areas, but right now it's time to get to the polls and have a real conversation. Are we voting against Trump? Are we voting for Biden? We're going to dig into that. We're going to talk about their 2 plans, the plans for Black America versus the Trump Platinum plan and versus the Lift Every Voice plan. We're going to even talk about how Ice Cube represented us, Diddy, the Black Party. So tune in. It's going to get good right here at 7 Generations Black. I want to kick it off with my guy, Lethal. Lethal, when we say, you know, that's just the title, the monolithic Black vote. What does that mean? Really breaking it down to our audience. What does it mean to say the monolithic Black vote?
Well, good evening, everybody. What's up, Shay? Good question. Way to start this off. This is actually something that, you know, I've struggled with, right? And I've taken a look at just from my own lens and my own perspective, right? Yeah. So monolithic Black vote. I don't think we have a monolithic Black vote. I don't know that we need one, right? Because I don't know that I stand in agreement with this movement to sort of push force, intimidate, shame some of our people to voting if that's not how they're moved, right? It goes back to, having respect for, people's individual rights. In order to have a monolithic vote, you have to literally have a community, right? And we use the word community, I think, out of context. We use it from an aspirational perspective, right? Is what we want to have a Black community, but we don't have a Black community because we're not aligned economically, we're not aligned politically, we're not aligned educationally, psychologically. We're just not there yet, right? And so, I think the better question, or the bigger question for me in my mind, is how do we get there? But in out to getting there, we cannot allow, external influences to cause us to tear at each other's throats because there's a segment of us who view and see things differently.
That's good on so many levels. When we look at, they continue to frame Black America as a monolithic group. They continue to do this all while they make sure they desegregate the white people. They put them in from education to political views to how they even identify and even age. So they continue to do this thing where they say there's one of us. And we know that despite the fact of people saying Black people don't vote, we make up a large part of who goes to the polls. If you're really real about this, and this is one thing about changing the narrative, we really have to dig into this. Black Americans on a par, they vote higher than any other group when you look at it. When you look at places like South Carolina, 60% of us are Black that go to the polls. And so a lot of times they say Black people don't vote, and we're out there and we're voting, but we don't know what we're voting for and why we're voting. Theo, when you think about this being a monolithic vote, and I know, and I really want to dig into too, who are we voting for? Are we voting against Trump or are we voting against Biden? But just tackling our title first, can you talk about that a little bit and then go into what are we doing as an American people right now? What does this vote look like for us in 2020?
Got you. So the Black people in this country have always been in the narrative reduced to a monolith. They used to just be like the Negro. If you listen to old radio broadcasts from the 50s and 60s, it was, what is the Negro going to do? The Negro existentially. The Negro reduced to just a Negro who is all Negroes. He is every Black man and no Black man. You see what I'm saying? So we've been monolithic in the eyes of this country for a very long time. Ain't nothing wrong with pattern recognition. Most of us vote Democrat. I think what's interesting is why we stopped being Republicans. It's a very good point to understand what we're dealing with today.
Yeah.
Used to only be Republicans. You see what I'm saying? Literally, Frederick Douglass was like, I can't think about no other way to be but a Republican. You know what I'm saying? The Democrats used to be the Dixiecrats. You see what I'm saying? So those were none but the Southern white racists. Okay? So the paradigm shift after 64 happens. We got to understand why this affects us today. Because I asked one of my Black Republican friends, if you are a Republican strategist and you see us going all the way wholesale for the Democrats after LBJ signs the Civil Rights Act, why don't y'all come and get us?
Right.
Why? What? Right. So we shifted from wholesale, almost all Republicans after before 64 to after 64, we almost all Democrat, right? So why didn't they come and get us? Why didn't they have policy offerings that was attractive to us, right? We vote, but nothing changed. I'm not sure if that's necessarily true. I am somebody who likes to look at all the data. Now, large scale macro, right? We still own 0.5% of the wealth. That's true. Okay. What did change was the soft power, individual wiggle room that we have to be successful if we have the hustle to do so. That matters on a small scale. So when you look at the fact that back in when we were facing open lynch mob culture was something that did get defeated. And if you ask any elder who faced open lynch mob culture, where you had to step off the street for a white child, you had to step off the sidewalk into the street for a white child, could not look white folks in the eye. You understand what I'm saying? That was a hell of a thing to defeat. Now, with that being said, what are we going to do in this election? I have tried to be objective as I can.
Yeah.
Sit back and be like, what are the policy offerings of the Republicans for real? What are the policy offerings to the Democrats for real? What is the viability of a third party candidate like Joe Jorgensen for real? You see what I'm saying? And the way that I can parse it out right now, as I said last podcast, we're facing something a little bit different. And because of that, this man needs to get removed by the best, most legal means necessary. You know what I'm saying? And that is to vote Biden, in my opinion. 220,000 dead. One of them, my Uncle Mike from COVID-19. You feel me? Like, I'm looking at the mishandling. The thing that sold me that he really needed to leave was when I found out how early Trump knew about COVID, how early he knew it was deadly, and how long it took for his ass to do anything about it. You see what I'm saying? And had he acted in that time period, not only could he save lives, but he could have saved the economy from shutting down too. Because had you quarantined it real tight, you wouldn't need to shut everything down. You see what I'm saying? 40% of Black businesses lost during the COVID-19 shutdown. What's that say? That says that this man has been detrimental to Black life, period, point blank. When we look at the infection rates, when we look at who's died, it's no question. He's got to pay a price for what he has done to Black folks. And for me, that's voting him out of office. That's what I say.
Man, Theo, you hit on something that's huge, and that was a big thing for me, is the way that he's handled himself in office, the way he handled the pandemic. We know that Black people haven't won from any party being in position, even with our own Black president. So we've never won, but we've definitely lost in the sense of lives. And that's a huge one. So when you start to think 13% of this country, we're made up of 13% of this country, and only 5% of the wealth goes to us as Black people. On top of that, we're dying at a rapid rate. There's a ticket that's at the price right now. It's Democrat, Republican ticket. We don't really feel represented in either or. Are we voting Trump out, or are we voting for Biden? What are we doing right now? Are we just simply sitting home? Because that's, we know, it's one thing that some people have been saying, just sit at home because we're not going to win either way. What are we doing?
That's a good question. And I think anybody that pretends to know the answer of what Black folks are doing are bullshitting, because I don't know what Black folks are doing.
That's honest, nigga. That's honest.
That's so real.
I think Lethal makes a very good point. I think Theo makes a very good point. They're very good points. They really are. And so I can't take anything away from that. And I'm not going to pretend to have the answer for Black people. I at this point, I'm just not. What I will say, though, is that I think that we're in a state of checkmate.
I fucks with that.
I'm not exactly sure if we're willing to admit that to ourselves. Once we move to the point where we are voting, and again, I hear everything that Theo's saying is 100% right. It is nothing that he's saying that is incorrect. And for everything that he named that Trump, as far as has been detrimental to Black people, I can name you white folks who have been in political office that were Democrats that did the exact same thing in different form. And yeah, real talk, Black folks too. Good point. And so I find it very difficult to get motivated for this conversation without us having. I think this is a conversation that is rooted in, and I think this is probably what my sister Jice is going to talk about when she moves up to the microphone, is that all of our politics should be taking place long before we get to this discussion right here. Like this is the what we call in chess. This is the end game, right? We got a fucked up opening, which is what they call the first couple of moves that you make in chess. That's called your opening. We ain't even got our opening straight yet, and yet we're supposed to get hyped over the end game. And there's a whole stretch of shit that we got all functified and all looking crazy. But again, I'm going to reiterate, I don't have the answers. I don't. I just feel like Black people are in between a rock and a white place. So we figure that out.
Say that one more time, please.
Yeah, what I want to do though, I want to make sure that Sister Jice, I could tell she's chomping at the bit, because she's been, if you watch Jice, she looks cute right now, but she's been pulling hair and scratching motherfuckers for the last week and a half on Facebook over this very discussion. And she's not wrong, right? She's not wrong. And
Man,
so
that's the key.
I yield my time to the Honorable Jice.
I love that. So you hit me to something, and Jice, before you get going, you've always stood as a voice of change and an authentic voice. And what you do is you force people to really sit at a place of knowledge and to really seek a different level, and to have in-depth conversations, have the hard conversations. And this is why 7 Generations was born, out of a place of saying it's time to have the hard conversations and make them kitchen table conversations. When you really talk about, it's enough of talking about we're voting for the lesser of two evils and what that really looks like and what the Black voice represents when we say we're voting between the lesser of two evils. Can you really break down what that means and what are we voting for right now? And what should that look like in our community that we're trying to build, the community we don't have?
Can you hear me? I just want to make sure you can hear me first.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. That's my microphone. I apologize. I'm laughing at H talking about ask that question again. I have a whole lot of thoughts. I had thoughts back when Theo said something.
Let's start with just voting for the lesser of two evils and the damage that causes to our community.
To H's point, we're 1 week away from the election. Obviously, there's nothing we're finna do about these two candidates. But what I think that we have done is we've backed ourselves up into a corner. And I don't think that we understand what that looks like. Like, this is not like you back the dog into the corner and the dog's finna attack. Like, there's not really a lot of options after this. So I think, I say this all the time. The lesser of two evils. First of all, let me back up. I'm 36 years old. I had the opportunity to vote, I believe, at 18. So for 18 years, I've been hearing the lesser of two evils, right?
Yeah.
And that strategy has not moved Black people at all. So to continue to hear that rhetoric is disheartening, to say the least. And it actually just gets frustrating when you're out here, actually playing the game, because you hear the lesser of two evils from people who aren't actively participating in the political process for the entire 4-year process, the rotation. So they come back every 4 years and then they start talking about the lesser of two evils. And it's like, please sit down. Somebody asked me today about the Electoral College, and, that's another piece of it. But, it's like, on the one hand, obviously, I believe that we all have a right to vote, but I also believe that we should vote with education. And that's something that we don't all have. And when I start thinking about how many dumb people I got to leave my vote to, it is really scary at times. I'm like, God, I almost feel like, no, actually everyone should not vote. Like, it almost makes sense why they started trying to put a system in place to make, that the elite could vote, because you would think of the elite as being educated. But I think you got, obviously, it's a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, when you start listening to people's rhetoric and thinking about how they get to affect the lives of everyone based on their vote, you don't deserve a vote. You need to sit down somewhere. But the other side of that is, obviously, there's voter, suppression and voter oppression. And so we don't want to get into that side, right? So I get it. That's not an easy conversation to have, especially being in the Black community, where we have had our votes suppressed and where we have had to pass, intelligence tests and all these other types of things in order for us to be able to vote. So I get that. I really do. But it's frustrating to listen to people who are just not politically active continue to talk about the lesser of two evils. Like, when is there not supposed to be a second evil? When did that actually happen? So that literally ties straight into this idea of accountability, which some people have said, have posted about, is accountability. What are we holding politicians accountable for? And so, to me, when we think even just at the bare basics of politics, it just doesn't make sense, the type of conversation that we have. This is an exchange. The exchange happens before we get voted in. So to Ice Cube's point, and I know that's a later, topic that we're going to get into, but to Ice Cube's point of, he tried to say, well, the Republicans are in office, so I went to go talk to Republicans. Now, he acknowledged that he, heard from both camps, and one camp didn't want to talk to him, right?
Right.
Okay, cool. But it's not just about who's in power. It's not just about Biden can't do anything. The parties are exchanging something for your vote. So the thing that I think that it's like, I said this before in my post, it's like talking to the void. It's like talking to a brick wall. When you talk to the Black community and you get Black person after Black person after Black person after Black person that insists that we need to wait until they're in office to hold them accountable.
Yeah, that's not how accountability works.
Right.
No, that's not how
remember the old Facebook. Like, no, that's not how that works, right?
That's not how that works.
That's not how that works.
So as you're saying that, Jice, and those of you tuning in, I hope you're sharing this out on your network because these are conversations we have to have. We only have a few days left until it's time for you to vote, not vote. But the thing is, we have generations to build on how we move forward as a collective. Jice, as you're saying now, what are we holding them accountable to? And I agree, that's not how accountability works. Now we see they both put out their plans. And when we talk about the Lift Every Voice plan versus Trump's Platinum plan, what plan do you feel like represents the Black, if any? And I know there might be things between both of the plans, and we can go into that if we want to talk about what those plans look like. But do you feel like those were significant enough or enough to say, okay, let's get out and vote?
Whose plan?
Either or.
Plan. I mean,
either.
If I could jump in, I'm sorry, Jice.
Absolutely.
So what I think I was almost going to say community. I'm not going to use that word.
You know, I want to say it too.
We as a people have failed to pay attention to is that there is an effective information environment campaign being run against us. And it's been running for as long as I've been alive, right? So Jice spoke to her 18 years of experience or 18 years of eligibility to vote. Well, I'm 50 in a couple of weeks. And so I've been eligible since I was 18. So we're talking, 32 years of eligibility to vote. You see what I'm saying? And, coming on the scene and paying attention, for 32 years, I've been told and I've been hearing lesser of two evils. For 32 years, I've been hearing and I've been told vote or die. For 32 years, I've been told vote like your life depends on it because your life depends on it, but I'm still alive. You understand what I'm saying? So there's been an effective information environment campaign being executed against us, right? The whole, if you don't vote, then you have no need and no right standing to complain. If you don't vote, then you're the reason why, Trump is in office, right? These are nothing but narratives. Yes. Yeah. And they're full of fallacies. You see what I'm saying? The whole argument that X equals Y, therefore Y had to have been caused by X, right? X being we don't vote or vote. Y being then somebody gets into office whom we don't like or don't want to be in office. So therefore, X must have caused the Y. Bullshit, right? Because there's other things that come into play. And what we ignore when we do that is we ignore the equifinality, right? And what that basically speaks to is the principle that there are other causes and other means that may be responsible, that are responsible for why Y occurred. It's not necessarily that X led to Y. And if we're not decomposing, deconstructing, and breaking shit down, you understand what I'm saying? Then we're just willingly and wittingly putting ourselves in a position where we are going to forever be susceptible to these fucking information environment narratives that are only designed to what's the word I'm looking for? Influence us to behave a certain way, because that's the reason and purpose behind an information environment narrative, right? Yeah. The narrative has been operationalized against us and we don't even fucking realize it. And I don't think it's because we don't know. I think it's because we don't care.
That's good.
So, I don't know if I would say we don't care. What I would say very clearly, and I think this is where the conversation is rooted in, and I've heard Brother Theo talk about this as well. Black folks are in an abusive relationship with America.
Yeah.
We're not in an abusive relationship with the Republican Party. We're not in an abusive relationship with the Democratic Party. We're not in an abusive relationship just with the police. We are not just in abusive relationship with the housing or the medical institute. We are in an abusive relationship with America. And until we go about, see, it's really, this is the funny thing about it though. If you speak to white women They'll tell you very clearly how to get out of an abusive relationship with a black man, but they can't tell black people how to get out of an abusive relationship with a white institution such as America. They got safe houses and shit that you can go to. They got all kind of 7-step programs of what not to listen to an abuser, and and books and clubs and groups, all that, which is important. And where is the discussion around the fact that black people have been from the very beginning in an abusive relationship? So to ask, here's my point. To ask black people to re-engage with an abuser, to Jice's point, without any type of reconciliations, reparations, what are we going to get in this? If you're asking me to come back home, are you saying you ain't going to hit me no more? Are you saying, right? Without any of that type of discussion, we are being, to Lethal's point, being shamed for not sticking with this abusive being. And there's a whole discussion that is missing out of that. And so it's abusive for you to ask people to be in an abusive relationship, is what my pink pussy hat people would tell me. There's something terribly wrong about all that, right? There's something's just not right. And so if that—
So I just seen a question come up. So hold on, before you go, I just seen a question come up, and it said, how do we start healing an abusive relationship with America? And because we're such a show about finding the solutions, I think that's a beautiful question. Where does that healing start?
It's the same way that the healing started for Tina Turner when she was in an abusive relationship with Ike. It starts with the Om No Re Yi Kom. You got to start going in and understanding yourself.
Oh, I was going to say punch back.
Yeah.
There go an answer right there from the audience.
When
Americans take responsibility for their actions against us. That's
here's the thing. I don't think it starts there, because Ike never took responsibility for his bullshit against Tina till the day he dies. What is responsible when it becomes important, and I think either Lethal or it was Jice that said this, is when we hold value for ourselves to the degree that you're not just gonna run up in the black house like that and act a damn fool, and then I'm gonna go show up out of shame to go vote because I don't want you saying that I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, let me ask that because I talk about that.
Yo. I'm okay. So I'm sorry, Jice. I didn't mean to cut you off, but so y'all both said something. Soul said that the white women didn't leave you no blueprint. Yeah, they did. They just don't want you to follow the blueprint. There's a blueprint for getting away from this abuser. It's just, if you apply it, then they're actually part of the abuser too. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, that's part of the thing. They didn't like when Bill Burr said that, but I digress. Next
right.
Okay. But
it wasn't feeling at all.
Bill Burr's a black Dave, the white Dave Chappelle. But look here, goddamn. Lethal said, there's more factors at play, right? So there's two ways to look at it. There are more factors at play. One of the factors at play is that, right, if all you do is fucking vote every 4 or 2 years, you're really not civically engaged. You're really not in the fight, right? So that's part of the reason why I didn't vote last time, because I was like, cuz realistically, who's more active than me? I can name, and there's only like 4 people, literally. I'm active as fuck in my community. I'm the one making my money. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a hustler. I'm gonna figure out what my destiny is, regardless. You know what I'm saying? During these last 4 Trump years, I literally got nationally famous. You know what I'm saying? Like, I literally started making more money per piece than ever had, right? But only because of my own hustle. That don't mean that just because my community is. You see what I'm saying? There's more factors at play here. And with that being said, you can also flip that on its head. If you're engaged, if you're fighting the fight, if you're educating your people, if you're mentoring these kids, if you're activists, why not vote? Why not vote? You see, if you're already in the fight, if you're already engaged, you're already using all the tools at your disposal, cast the vote in there and then keep on fighting. Keep on working, keep on building, keep on growing. No. This is very, very key for me, right? Because if our lives don't really change anyway, regardless of who the fuck is in office, if the Democrats break their promises and if the Republicans break their fucking promises, do that shit and then you keep your promises to your community. But you keep on fighting. My opinion about this is based on this very simple fact, man. I can't get over the fucking burning feeling in my stomach when I look at this sumbitch in office. When I couldn't go to Uncle Mike's funeral off of COVID, you feel me? I felt like some part of this was on my hands, yo. And I just couldn't put that shit down. No amount of anything that I do in my community could have stopped COVID, but my vote and a lot of motherfuckers like me could have stopped Trump. You see what I'm saying?
Nah.
With that being said, yeah.
No.
Those of you just tuning in, we are tuned into 7 Generations Black. You're going to get so many different perspectives today. But share them on your platform.
Yeah, but Theo, your assumption is that the alternative would have done better than what Trump has done. And I'm not saying that's true or not true. I'm saying it's an assumption that you're making.
So with us talking about an alternative, while we're saying alternative, I want to tap into the alternative of our Black Party. So Diddy did come out before.
Wait. Before you go there, can I go back to something that H said? Because Theo interrupted to say that BS.
You can't call someone else's perspective BS.
Yeah, it is. I did. I still love him though. I love you, Theo.
This is 7 Generations Black, y'all. All different perspectives. Let's go.
I said,
go ahead, Jice.
Wait, who did we meet this weekend? Respectfully. That was
respectfully. BS. I have a different opinion.
I solved the problem. I said respectfully first.
Solved.
I want to go back to something that gets said often, which is pushing the Black community to give their vote away in exchange for nothing and using ancestral guilt as a part of that push. Fear and ancestral guilt. And before we move on to talk about what other potential options there may be for us in the future, which we hope there's still time for us in the future. And I think that's part of the issue overall is since we have been allowed to vote, we have not used our vote effectively to really gain rights past social rights. So what we're talking about when we talk about Stockholm Syndrome, what we're looking at, right? The whole premise around Stockholm Syndrome is to give you enough freedoms that you are comfortable with being. It's not just loving your abuser, right? It's I was chained and now I'm not chained. I'm doing better, right? Now I've moved from the basement. I can come and move around in the house, right? Maybe we can even walk to the store so long as I don't run, right? So there's this part where the social freedoms that we have received are giving us the ability to be in a position of Stockholm Syndrome. We couldn't be in Stockholm Syndrome before while we were chained and beaten and raped and enslaved. What has given us the ability to love our abusers is the social freedoms that we have obtained through all of the activism that we have done. What we have not done is obtain economic freedom. So we do not own homes. They have taken the land that we have received. Reparations was paid to the slave owners for the loss of our bodies. We have not gotten fair health. We have not gotten equitable education. We have not gotten equitable opportunity to capital, to source our businesses. All the rest of everything that allows us to live the American dream. We don't have that. What we can do, to K-Tone's point, is we can buy Birkin bags and we can sit in the same restaurants and we can sit on the bus and we can talk shit about Karen and Becky and we can marry them. Because that's amazing. This is not what has actually moved our communities forward anywhere in terms of the overall. And that's the thing that the Black community doesn't get. The more that we do this, and I told you about propaganda before, America has placed this propaganda about thinking about the individual, which works great for white people. And even then, they don't think about individuals unless they are trying to move something forward. Like white women are not.
A contradiction, but I'm going to point that out in a second. Go ahead.
But the issue is that we have always had, and this is to Chris Senegal's point, we have always had Black millionaires since of the abolishment of slavery. That's not been an issue. An individual can climb and navigate their way through the system. The issue is when you put all 5 of us here on this panel, the statistics bear out that only one of us make it. That's the statistics. So the numbers don't bode well for all of us. And so one, stop trying to use fear, because we're living in a shit hole, to use Trump's words. That's where we're living, not in Africa, here. And a lot of people live in the city and your life looks one way. That's where we're living here. That's where a lot of us are living here.
Hold on, I want to give I do want to give Theo the chance to respond to that.
Yeah, I want to respond. I think people just need, first of all, I hope we're recording this. I think we need to cut from when she started until when she ended, and we need to replay that shit about 1 million times between now until the moment we get it, because that was a whole black baby Jesus word that I just spoke right there.
Black baby Jesus word.
Wait, before Theo responds, let me just add this to ancestral guilt. And this is the part that I really don't think that we get. And again, I posted this myself, so you can go back to my page and you can look it up yourself. Our vote, we have zero fucking obligation to our ancestors to vote. We do not have an obligation to them. We thank them because how we got to the place where we were able to exercise our rights as citizens in this country is because their lives were taken. So we thank them, and that is a part of what we do when we are thinking about how we continue to move the needle forward. If we keep looking backwards and saying that our obligation to vote is based on what our ancestors did, we've got it all wrong. My obligation to vote is based on Alea, Arian, and Azaria. That's my obligation to vote, because it is about what we are moving forward into, and our vote today affects what happens tomorrow. It is not about what they did in order for us to get here. If we continue to look back, we say thank you, we pay homage, but that is not where our obligation lies. Our obligation lies to our future generation. That is why we have to continue to vote and move forward how we progress in this country. And the way that we've been voting is literally not moving us forward. Matter of fact, there's many statistics that have taken steps back.
Come on, Theo.
Jice, that was a word, and that was sponsored by Jice Johnson, Grind with Jice. Yo, those of you tuning in to 7 Generations Black, I hope after that you share this with your network, because as you can see, this is unbought and unbossed viewpoints right here on 7 Generations Black, and we come to you every Tuesdays for moments like this. The monolithic black vote. Theo, I'm gonna give you a chance to just have a conversation back and some of the things that Jice said, and go ahead and respond to that.
You know what I hate about being a well-spoken black person? I get props for being a well-spoken black person and nothing fucking changes. And that's all of us here. We can curse the shit out of our oppression so well, so brilliantly, nigga. We can fucking just have all the words to dissect the freaking nuances and the minutia and all of the crazy shit that's fucking happening to us. But the truth is, you vote with every dollar you spend. That's a fact.
Absolutely. And you know, I know that if nobody else knows that.
Every time you buy gas, you vote for ExxonMobil. Every time you buy some food, you vote for Monsanto. Every time you buy some medicine, you vote for Pfizer. That's a fact. So we're already voting in this system. Every time we go to the gas station, we're voting. Every time we go to the grocery store, we're fucking voting. And that's the motherfucking truth. So let's be honest about our full scope of participation in this bitch before we start talking about how we won't participate on just one front. Because regardless of what you do, you are in this motherfucking matrix until you can provide for yourself outside of it. So if you ain't working to provide for yourself outside of it,
then vote.
Then don't be in denial about how intertwined you are with this motherfucker.
I don't think anybody's in denial, but why vote?
No, because here's what pisses me off about this, right? We accept the lesser of two evils all the fucking time. We don't want to pollute the Arctic ice caps and have global warming, but we buy fucking gasoline, don't we? And we don't want to add to the exploitation of the third world when we buy bananas, knowing that the military-industrial complex put its boot on the neck of some banana republic to get us no freaking season, all the fruit you want all the fucking time. You see, when you look at the whole corporatocracy of the shit, and not just the democracy of the shit, when you deal with the fact that we're voting for inverted totalitarianism due to the fact that this is run by corporations, And the United States is a small part of it. Take a thorough assessment of how you vote all the time.
Yes,
Every day.
you have, I hear you, but you have not made a relevant argument to why that explains why you should vote. What you're saying is that you're participating regardless.
That's why you should vote, at least for what you got right now. Listen, cuz this whole idea that we don't owe our ancestors nothing, that ain't African at all. I don't know what ancestors we do.
That's what she said.
Yo.
That's not what she said.
Hold on, G. I'm gonna let you finish. All right. The bottom line is that we are in a situation right now where we're not, all of this shit that we're doing, we're not playing and fighting like true survivors. A true fucking survival uses every tool in this environment to get to where we're going. The only problem with us is we are so content to talk about what's wrong and not do what's right to make our whole condition change. Nothing Jice said is wrong. The fact that, the odds are stacked against us, that there's always been Black millionaires, there's always been individual success stories. Okay, that's true. I don't like that shit, even as a supposed success story on some respects. But my ancestors said, motherfucking lift as you climb. My ancestors said, like, deal with the fucking shit and look back at what they did and use the tools that they gave me. Because if that tool was taken away, let me just ask you, realistically, if the vote was taken away from us, if we actually, like, for real, if Amy Coney Barrett gets in the freaking Supreme Court, and
it's done.
Right, for real.
It's done.
So here's the thing.
Let me get in. Let me get in real quick. Right. This notion, right, that inaction is bad instead of inaction is an action is flawed. Because inaction is an action if you're not acting with the intent to bring something about. Right. Okay. So,
I'm bringing about whooping Trump's ass and all the white supremacists.
Hold on. For those of us who are parents, right, we understand and we know that when we want our child to do something and that child wants something in return from us, we deny that to that child. Plain and simple, basic. Until that child changes its behavior, it doesn't get what it wants from us. Okay. So now, when we look at the history, right, of the political landscape, what the fuck has been given to us based off of our behavior of consistently and constantly giving away our vote for nothing in return. So therefore, since we know that either political party wants power, because that's what politics is about. It's about power. So since they want power, right? And if we think that we don't have power, we're wrong, which means we don't understand how strong we are economically. A couple of podcast episodes ago, right, I highlighted the report from the study that came out from Citigroup. And that report clearly said that over the past 20 years, this fucking country's economy has lost $16 trillion based off of its anti-Black racism, not anti-people of color racism, not anti-minority racism, anti-Black racism, anti-African-American racism. That's me, you, and every fucking body out there who looks like us. You understand what I'm saying? So we have power. So to act like we don't have power is wrong and flawed, because we do. Now, going forward, this same study, right, identified that if they don't stop the anti-Black racism, they will lose another $5 trillion over the next 5 years. That is a grand fucking total of $21 trillion. You cannot tell me that we don't have power. You cannot tell me that our culture does not have power. Exactly. So we deny the power that they want. And if we deny them the power that they want by not voting, that is taking an action, because it sends a message to them. Hey, motherfuckers, if you don't give us what the fuck it is, we are demanding, not asking, demanding. We will tear your fucking economy down.
Let me ask you a question. With that being said, let me ask you all a question, because we have to talk about where are we going next. We're always looking at this from a 7-generational lens. Those of you just now tuning in with us, thank you so much for all the engagement. You guys are dope out there. I see all the engagements of the watch parties, YouTube, Facebook, network. But as we're talking about this, we're talking about
independent Black media. in the super chats.
Boom. Support Black media, y'all. Independent Black media. As you can see, these are unvetted viewpoints. They're going hard, and it's not going to stop, y'all. So tune in every week so you can get these viewpoints. Is Diddy's solution?
Here's the solution. Here's the solution that I think we have to. And Theo asked a question that I think bears us all taking a moment to answer. What happens if they took away the Black vote? What would happen is that Black folks would wake the fuck up and realize that we live in an oligarchy in the first place, not because Hasira is saying it, because the Harvard study says it, that we live in a oligarchy. Have we even began to discuss what that means and what that is saying? That is saying this whole illusion that you're running out there and casting your vote and it's having some type of impact on the system is bullshit.
Hey, Anderson would disagree. Hey, Anderson would disagree. Would disagree.
That is not Hasira saying that. That is Harvard who did the study, who we would love to attribute that is saying that. Now, with that said, I'm always for Black people. If we're going to come up with a solution, we have to see shit clearly. We don't see shit clearly because half the people that was voting for Biden thinks that this nigga is the second coming of Obama, which was what? For Black people?
Ain't nothing like that going on.
Look and see why people voted for Biden. If you look and understand why the Democratic corporate elite chose Biden as the candidate to run against Trump, it's because of his association with Mr. Obama. And Obama did what? Okay.
I'll wait. I'm listening.
Yeah,
what the fuck did he do?
Which I kicked his ass about on my podcast too.
What I'm not saying.
Hold on, both these niggas.
I'm not arguing against you, Theo. What I'm arguing, what I'm seeing in the chat room or in the right over here, where people are like, "Well, if we don't vote, then we don't have a right." You know, all these myopic, dualistic, simplistic, and we cannot get to where we're trying to go if we continue to use the logic of what we've got, what's gotten us here. And lastly, and then I'm gonna leave this alone. Jice did not say that we don't owe our ancestors anything. You see how Black folks take shit out of context, even when
come on, cuz. Like you ain't did that. Come on, dog.
And I didn't do it, but I'm checking it being said now. So when I do it, then you can check it when I say it. But as of right now, someone said, not just you in the chat room, that Jice saying that means that she doesn't stand on the shoulders of her ancestors and blase Skippy and all that. No. What she is saying is that when our ancestors fought for the vote, there were a set of circumstances that existed in the United States where that was what was to fight for. That does not mean that will always be into perpetuity what there is to fight for. You cut the log that is in front of you. You don't cut the log that is behind you. And so what Jice is saying is we have to look at the circumstances as they exist now. And
super chat
now serve our best interest, and we owe it to our ancestors to ask ourselves that question. Is it worth me taking my Black ass to the poll, or should I be going to the gun shop, or should I be going to the local suit, or should I
go
maybe all the above?
And it should be. And here's the thing. We have to be able to do this. You know, there's elections always happening, right? Like this, we got to get out of the 4-year election mentality. But to your point, Theo, when you say that it's not going to be another Obama administration, but it is. All over Joe Biden's website, he's literally saying, I'm going to expand this from the Obama-Biden administration. I'm going to expand that from the Obama-Biden administration. I'm going to expand this. And when you go through his Lift Every Voice plan, it's a crock of shit. And if you go through the Trump Platinum plan, it's a crock of shit. And so they're handing us on every side a crock of shit. We should just expect a crock of shit for the next fucking 4 years.
And I don't
Let me ask you guys something. What I was talking about, there's a lot of things happening. I think sometimes we get so caught up in the presidential elections when it's really the policies that are right next door to you that people don't get involved in. They don't talk about the things that generally affect your real neighborhoods and things such as judges. we know the Senate vote was confirmed. This was one of the fastest proceedings that ever happened with a nominee. They have put in place President Trump's Supreme nominee, Amy Coney Bennett, into office after Ruth, passed away. So we didn't expect this to happen as fast. How is this going to affect us with having this type of fast move? The quickest nomination process that has ever happened, and somebody like Amy that sat there and it was clearly against Black people and clearly didn't want to speak on some regards that affected us. How much will this affect us with having her in the Senate seat?
So let me address something real quick about that, right? President or former president, the Black people's president, Obama, if you check the data, he is responsible for 25 or 30% of the judges on the federal bench. The federal bench. So let me ask us a question. How the fuck has that benefited us? I would love for someone out there to answer that question. How has that benefited us? Because he's responsible for more judges on the federal bench, right? Where our lives are mostly impacted, okay? So the Supreme Court affects us at the macro level. But those federal judges at the lower level, yeah, they affect us a whole lot more, micro. And Obama is responsible. I think I saw the data. I think it was about 29% of them. That's almost 1/3. That's almost 1/3 of the active judges he's responsible for. And let's not forget that there was an opportunity before he left office, if you understand how the relationship between the executive branch, judiciary, and the legislative branch works and whatnot, for him to put more individuals on federal benches, to include the Supreme Court, but he wanted to play by the rules of the Constitution. So somebody said that, how can you live in a society and not play by the rules? How can you live in a society, play by the rules, and still get fucked?
So, Lethal, let me ask you this. Do you think there's value in boycotting a process until that, because that happened, I lived abroad and people do that all the time. They don't participate in elections because it validates the very elections that they say are fallible, right? Or faulty. Do you think there's value in boycotting, consciously boycotting? Because that's what people say non-votes are to a large degree. Do you believe in boycotting and the value of boycotting these elections?
Yes, I do believe. I believe. Listen. I believe. Listen. We always seem to forget and act like America is a country built on feel-good social shit. It's not. Hello, it's not. America is a country built on capitalism. It's built on money. It came into prominence because of its strong economic standings that our people, our ancestors built with their free freaking labor. That's what America's about. Hold on, H. So to your question, right? The power of not participating, the power of boycotting, which is what not participating is really all about, right? It has an impact because we're talking about dollars. And the one thing that we know America cares about when it comes to color, more than white, is green. No one can deny that.
So, Theo, what do you think about the boycotting angle? Consciously boycotting the process until we feel like the process is valuable and fair and not based upon, this whole this Supreme Court vote that came out where $1 equals a voice. What about boycotting that process until that process bends to the will of Black people and opens it up to be free and fair and removes itself out of an oligarchy? Would that seem like a viable option to you? I want to hear Jice too, but because Theo.
Hey. Now you're doing too much over there. So now you're doing too much, okay?
Number one.
Go ahead, Theo. I'm going to let you go ahead and answer that question, and then I'll take it from there. Go ahead, Theo.
I just didn't want to be accused.
You tried it, though. We appreciate it, 7 generations Black. This is what happens when you get activists and intellects together. This is what happens. Go ahead, Theo.
I didn't want to see nothing in the chat room like that. Oh, you didn't let the Black woman talk. I just wanted to say, Jice can have
power to the people. All right.
Look.
Theo.
How do I feel about boycotting the vote? Because I feel that shit is completely fucked up and unfair. I did it in 2016. Feel me? And I came to that place after a long, hard road with voting. My first election, I told y'all, was 2000 when there was Bush versus Gore, and them dangling Chaz got all fucked up, and 1,000 of my peoples from Florida A&M got turned away from the goddamn polls. I saw that we only got as much democracy as power allowed. What I think is often lost on people who are, especially in the left echo chamber, is Trump overcame the establishment Republicans because of the voting in the caucuses of the Republican Party. The Bush establishment stood against him. Rubio and Cruz stood against him. The democracy that took place over there overcame the motherfucking shit that they wanted to do. You see what I'm saying? That was one of the first clues that let me know in large enough numbers, there is certain things like, and I thought that the cabal was all powerful. I thought them niggas pulled all the strings. It turns out they can pull it to a certain extent, but not everything. And so I'll say that I'll still vote in the local elections. I'm so glad when I see James Coleman. You feel me? I'm so glad when I see Leslie Harrod. I'm so glad when I see Tay Anderson. I love them people on a personal level. You feel me? And the things that they've been able to do. I know for those of you not in Denver, I just named young Black legislators, Chantel Lewis, who get shit done for the hood. Candy C. DeBaca, who's listening to the hood. You know what I'm saying? Who overcame a Black figurehead puppet motherfucker who you had plenty of problems with. So I remember you going hard at this cat in his face. I was like, oh, so finna punch this man up right here at Brother Jeff's. Praise God, right? So listen, but the vote took him out of place. And if one of those folks was to rise to prominence and keep their integrity, then that's what's going on. I feel like, so in that level, it's not corrupt. In that level, it does work. And I just want people to understand, also clack up your gun. Also get that motherfucker tight. Also get them tight groupings on that target. You feel me? Like
it's
also
not one or the other.
Like, right. It's like use all the tools in your environment and plot your destination. But what I'm tired of personally, because I get paid to fucking talk, is cursing the system while I'm on fire brilliantly. You see what I'm saying? Like I'm on fire and I'm just beautifully articulating how bad the flames hurt. I'm done with that shit, bro. Understand that we vote when everything that we do and just use all the tools at your disposal. I boycotted in 2016. I can't do it. Every time I see this motherfucker on TV, I can't do it, bro. You know what I'm saying? It's an emotional thing for me right now.
I hear you.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. And because there's so much going on, this is just a part one. There will be a part two, but that means you have to tune in the same time, same place. And you know what I want to do? I had to do a mindset moment. It wouldn't be complete without this. We're getting near our time, but 7 Generations Black. You know what this is? We're all about how do we look at this from a 7 generational lens? How do we start preparing for generation after generation after generation? One thing I love that Jice said today, it's not just about our ancestors, but it's about our babies. What are we looking forward to when we talk about the Black, the monolithic Black vote? And then we talk about what are we getting in exchange for our vote? Will you be at the polls? Will you not? And how do you tell our people to move forward? I want to hear your final thoughts from a 7 generational lens. I'm gonna kick it off to my co-host first, Saul.
She said her code. Shot fired. I fucked up with that one, boy. So this is what I would say, and to Theo's point, we're batting around ideas and going against each other, and everybody here, we all know, has mad love and respect for each other.
Yes.
At the end of the day, I would say that you should vote, right? And this is the reason why. I think that we should vote because we need to stay in practice for when this system famously flames out, which is really, I believe, going to be sooner than later. And so we as a group of people have to continue to exercise that muscle for when the new system steps into place. That is a true democracy. That is a true participatory where voices matter. I don't want us to get into the habit of not participating. And then when it comes time for us to do our thing, we haven't exercised that muscle. And so that we are caught off guard. We're not ready to take the reins. So for no other reason than a very pragmatic one. I think that we should vote. With that said, I think it's important that we do not shame. And I've even seen in the chat room, people say people who don't vote are lazy, right? Like that's that mentality where we get into shaming people, you know, and I think Lethal spoke to that most importantly. And so
I wasn't lazy when I didn't vote. And I'll just throw that out, go back. So sorry. I wasn't lazy. I was active. I just didn't vote.
You were very active. We got receipts. So that's very true. And you're the reason why I'm saying that you can't make that assessment of people. Right. That the reason why they're not voting or they say don't vote is because they're lazy, because of exactly what Theo said. He was out demonstrating. He was out boycotting in front of churches. He was out demanding that the police stop. He was out confronting the mayor and he boycotted. So we can't make that assessment about people. And so I would ask that we give each other grace, listen to each other's voices as is taking place here. And, you know, with that said, if you think that I have been a more effective host, I am now applying for
your own people. Sometimes it be your own people. Bro, I tell you.
Yeah.
Go ahead and
he's out.
So, oh my God, our mindset moment, Jice. I would really love to hear what you have to say. What are we getting in exchange for our vote? Is it enough? Will you be at the polls? Is there a monolithic Black vote? How do you wrap this up for our people? How do they move forward in a 7-generational lens?
Yeah, I would say, you know, we really need to shift the way that we think in general in our community, because we value entertainment over education, which is why we're consistently making uneducated votes and uneducated decisions inside of our community. But at the end of the day, to many of the things that Theo was, addressing as an example of where you spend your dollar and, what organizations and companies have been allowed to exist and thrive in ways that they've been allowed to exist and thrive. And many of the other issues that we have brought up that we know exist in our communities are policy issues. And so we have to continue to address policy. And for some reason, Black people think policy start and stop at the president, and it does not. That's not even the legislative arm or branch of the government. So, I absolutely say vote. I have been very clear. I will not be voting for Biden. He has not done anything or said anything that has, earned my vote. I will absolutely not be voting for Trump. However, there are local elections that do absolutely matter, and I think that we should be participating in those things. To those who have felt that inaction is not an action, I think Lethal made that very clear that it is. And so you can actively decide that you are not doing something. That is a form of protesting. That is a form of boycotting. And so especially if you're doing that with an active, in an active setting. So the last thing that I'll say with that is to somebody's point, the Black vote currently today has leverage. There has been active participation to remove the leverage of the Black vote. And this is why I say the Republicans do not need our vote. I think we need to be reminded of that, because we are constantly asking for Republicans to be held accountable to something that they have not agreed to be held accountable to. We give our vote in mass numbers to the Democratic Party. And by mass numbers, I mean a super majority to the Democratic Party. That is who we can and should hold accountable for our vote. And what is happening and what is taking place is that they are working to make sure that the Black vote doesn't matter. There are already examples of that. The Native American vote does not matter. The indigenous people, I don't know what the politically correct term is. The indigenous people of this country's vote does not matter. That is deliberate action. That is what is happening to the Black community. So we may not have an opportunity to affect another election because we cannot seem to understand that the Democratic Party has not delivered on its promise, or any promise, has not made a promise to the Black community for decades.
That's good. Thank you, Jice. Mindset moment. Mr. Lethal, you've always been a man of wisdom. I would love to hear how you wrap this up. What do we get in exchange for our vote? Is there a monolithic vote? How do we move forward in a 7-generational lens? Will you be at the polls? Will you tell our people to go to the polls? What does that look like for you?
We're getting nothing for our vote. We've never gotten anything for our vote. We are not a monolithic people. And what I want our people to understand going forward into the future, if we study and read and respect the elder Dr. Claude Anderson, the Honorable Dr. Claude Anderson, voting is the last thing that we need to do. It's not the first thing or the only thing. So if the first or only thing you're doing is voting, I kindly ask you to be quiet and go somewhere and sit down. Kindly, I ask you to go do that, right? And I ask those of us who are influential in our community, those of us who are involved in our community or with our people, I ask you to never forget, right, that this is a country, this is a society built on economic strength and prowess and dominance. That's it in a nutshell. Your feelings and your emotions, they mean nothing in the big picture grand scheme of things when it comes to them dollars. That is what this country cares about. If you haven't yet read the study in detail about how this country, based off of its hate of people who look like you, has lost 16 trillion over 20 years and stands to lose another 5 trillion in the next 5 years for a total loss, potentially going into the future, of $21 trillion, then I implore you, I ask you to pick that up and to read it and to commit it to your memory and make it a part of what it is that you do as far as your actions are concerned. This is a country that is about power and money, politics and economics. In a nutshell, it does not care, and it never has cared about your social feel-good feelings. That is a distraction. There is an operationalized information environment campaign with strong narratives against you to invoke an emotional response. But none of those narratives has ever spoken to the empowerment and or the enrichment of your Blackness, your Black people, and your Black culture.
Thank you for that, Mr. Lethal. The study he's talking about is citywide study, so make sure you guys check that out.
No, Citigroup.
Citigroup study.
If you know who Citigroup is, then you understand why that is important. And if you understand how these billionaires stay together, you'll understand why Jeff Bezos, Citigroup, Mike Bloomberg, and all these other billionaires in the top 10 list of billionaires are putting their money into the Black community. It's because they have participated in the loss of 16 trillion and they don't want to lose another 5 trillion. Don't tell me.
All right, I got to get to my mindset moment. You know, my guy, Theo E.J. Wilson, I would love for you to wrap this up for us. Are we a monolithic people? What are we getting in exchange for our vote? Should our people be at the polls? Is this enough? What do we do? How do we move forward in a 7-generational lens?
If Black people were a monolithic people, one thing that monoliths have is unity. A monolith has unity. That's one thing that it's got. Mono meaning one. You see what I'm saying? And we don't have that right now. I think that we shouldn't be afraid to be a monolith in the right context, that is. You see what I'm saying? If you were a monolith, then you move as one. You know what I'm saying? All for one. I mean, can you imagine that? Like 47 million of us, because when the census come out, I think we're going to be a little bit more than 13%. I think we like going to be like 14%, probably 15. You know what I'm saying? If you count African descended people who are waking up to the fact that, oh yes, I am also African. You feel me?
Right.
So all this to be said. With that in mind, you have to be aware that awareness is not enough. Like being aware is not enough. I wrote a book called The Law of Action on Amazon. If you'd like to go get it, it tells you how to take action. Okay. Law of Action, Mastery of the Universe we actually live in. But knowledge isn't power. Action is. In fact, knowledge without action is just a blueprint without a construction team. You feel me? Like we have to do something. And I want us to be figuring out and assessing what do we do every day to exert our power to change our community every single day. Voting is, like we said, the bare fucking minimum. You have to get involved because whether you want to admit it or not, you are always operating within a power, but is it your power? And figure out how to do this with your community because politics is a game of group power. Race and racism is a game of group power. And if we operated as a monolith in the right direction, 47 million of us strong would be unstoppable. And we need to figure out what that direction is. I'm gonna leave it there.
That was beautiful. This is 7 Generations Black, y'all. We're here every single Tuesday for you, 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We're in season 3. This is episode 1. What's up?
We won't be here next Tuesday, remember?
Oh, yeah. Every single Tuesday except for next Tuesday because it's election day. Oh, my God. It's back.
So
we're encouraging
but guess what?
What after that, though, man?
Co-host, that's enough. So guess what will happen?
Yeah.
We'll be back Tuesday after that for the post-election discussion. Then we can get into if this Black Party, our Black Party for Diddy is going to really work, what's going on. There'll be more to come. It'll be part 2. I'm going to leave you with this. I am no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I am just changing the things I cannot accept. Angela Davis, let's keep moving forward. And until next time, keep hustling for your 7 Generations Black. Make sure you go over to YouTube and subscribe to CTN Media, where we're changing the narrative with you. We love y'all. Peace and love. We're 7 Generations Black, y'all.